Thanks for staying with us on SABC News. One of the focuses of the 37th SADC Summit will be the implementation of the SADC Development Fund. This fund's aim will be to help the region's 15 member countries access funding for projects. The summit is currently taking place in Pretoria. Our reporter Liabo Setho is attending the summit. Good afternoon, Liabo.
Good afternoon, Zinga. Well, we are coming to you from the 37th SADC Summit that's currently taking place in Pretoria. And as you've rightly said in your intro, one of the most important things that we will be looking at during the summit is the issue of funding, particularly the issue of the SADC Development Fund, which is something that the Secretariat and SADC as a region are looking into. The reason this is important is because with each and every project that the region would want to undertake, it's important, of course, that they would have funding to make sure that this comes to fruition. Naturally, these kind of funds, they work in such a way that all the member countries would contribute, and with each and every project that needs to be done, then that is where the money would typically come from. Of course, we don't have a lot of details about that, but I'm sure that during the course of the summit, we will be finding out just how far the Secretariat or the region is with regards to implementing and establishing that fund. But one of the other important things that I would like to talk to you about is the issue of infrastructure development in the region, in the SADC region. I'm joined by Mr. Pera Ramwedi. He is part of the SADC Secretariat. He particularly looks at infrastructure and water development in the region. Mr. Ramwedi, thank you very much for making time to us.
Thank you for having me.
I'm sure you've just heard me talking about the issue of the SADC Development Fund and how that would be important for your department and sector in making sure that we reach our infrastructure goals. And we've come a long way as a region. Earlier on, we were talking about, the issue of energy supply in the region, that, at some point there was a point where electricity could just not be found. But now we have mostly, we're not really energy secure, but we are getting there. How important is this development fund for the SADC region?
Well, the development fund will assure us as an own fund that the priorities that SADC sets for infrastructure are easily funded with own resources. Thus, if we have a fund like that, we'll reduce the time, for instance, for project development, because within the fund, we will have project preparation development facilities or windows, because by and large, a number of challenges that have been outlined is sometimes not necessarily lack of funding, but the quality of projects that we prepare, and in terms of meeting the requirements of investors. Now, with the development fund, with a window that dedicate its support to infrastructure, would be able to address some such issues. Currently, even before the development fund is established, we have a number of facilities that have been developed, earmarked to support project preparation, particularly for infrastructure. We have the project preparation development facility with DBSA, for instance, that is looking specifically at taking a number of infrastructure projects from concept stage to taking them to pre-feasibility, feasibility, up to bankability and closure, so that they can now attract investment. Now, a development fund, therefore, will make sure that the member states, our partners, we are able to focus our attention to those issues that are priority without having to wait for resources from elsewhere. That will have our own funding to run this.
Understood. Seeing that you are looking into infrastructure, and I know that one of the goals of the SADC Summit or the SADC region is the issue of industrialization. We are looking at three priority areas: agro-processing, beneficiation, and pharmaceutical sectors. Do we have infrastructure projects that are up and running to support these goals? Because they are short-term goals.
Yes. I think we do have infrastructure projects in place, particularly in the area of energy, in the area of transport, which are very critical for when those products would have been processed. They will need to be moved from the point of production to the point of sale. And therefore, in terms of projects that we have in the transport sector, I'm talking about rail, road, and maritime. We do have projects that are trying to link our ports, for instance, with the sources of where these things through a corridor approach. SADC has prioritized through the tripartite arrangement 2 corridors as a mode of facilitating transport within the region.
Sure.
The Beira corridor,
yes,
and the North-South corridor. These are our high priority corridors wherein we are developing various projects relating to roads, rail. In fact, in terms of rail, we are developing a rail master plan that is going to assist the region to see which links have to be prioritized and then developed fast. Now, the industrialization obviously will require a lot of energy to run those industries.
Yes.
And the member states collectively and individually have various planned generation projects. I think we are hoping to generate up to 30,000 megawatts of power by 2022 with the current planned projects that we have in our portfolio. In terms of transport, as I said, we are working very hard in making sure that, for instance, some of the trade facilitation arrangements are really softer issues around harmonizing the rules of, for instance, transport in terms of the carrying, the loading, and making sure that we facilitate easy transit, short time of transit through one-stop border posts, which are things that are currently being looked at very seriously. We have one-stop border post, for instance, between Zambia and Zimbabwe, the Chirundu border post. It's one which is now quite functional in terms of the one-stop border post. This has helped to reduce the transit time for goods and services that have to transit, for instance, from, say, Durban to Lubumbashi in DRC, because that route is the route that it goes through. So if you have several such one-stop border posts, it means the goods that you produce will actually reach the destination and where it's supposed to be sold much faster.
Mr. Amrede, I'm afraid we don't have a lot of time left,
yes.
But I really would have wanted to hear more about the projects. But I am quite interested in the fact that we are making progress,
yes.
and the plans that you are giving us about
yes.
that we are planning to have at least 30,000 megawatts of power by 2022, and the strains that have been made with regards to transport infrastructure. I do thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was Mr. Perera Muredi, and he is from the SADC Secretariat, and he particularly looks at infrastructure and water development around the SADC region, and he's given us an outline of what has been done so far and what we can expect in the future. And it's back to you in the studio.